What is going on, Dog Pound? And welcome on in to the OBR post-game show. The Cleveland Browns in a snow globe. I saw that thing at Home Goods earlier this week when my wife wanted to go shopping for Christmas decorations. An absolute snow globe down at Huntington Bank Field. The Cleveland Browns take down the Pittsburgh Steelers. Final score 24-19 in a game that just had a little bit of everything, but in the end, the Cleveland Browns do not allow the Pittsburgh Steelers into the end zone, and the Browns walk away with their third victory of the season. I'm your host, Michael Keefe, here tonight. Joining me, Brad Ward, Pete Smith. Boys, what a night! What an incredible night! The snow, the atmosphere, the crowd, and the result of the game. I don't know about you guys, but I'm flying high right now. Brad, how are you feeling?
Amazing. That game was fun. That was fun. A very fun football game. Anything you wanted, you had it. Momentum shifts. Probably shouldn't have let him back in the game so quickly. Didn't need all that drama at the end, but we'll take it. You know, Jameis making a case for himself, man. Jameis making a case for himself. He was fantastic. It's always, as Connie says, it's always so sweet to beat those bastards, and that is so true. So, yeah, I mean, that was a listen, man, we heard a lot about, like, effort and stuff this week. That team played their ass off tonight to win that game. So I don't want to hear anything about effort because that was tremendous effort all around. Great game plan. Jim Schwartz redeems himself. Defense was pretty good most of the night. And Jameis, man, and Jerry Jeudy, fantastic.
Man, I think this is the best argument. If you're going to make the argument that you shouldn't have a dome, this is your game. This is the game where you say, I want a dome. Now, the 99 other games like this, you want a dome. But this was great. You watch the clips from earlier in this game, and it's like time travel. There's nothing on the field when Nick Chubb scores that first touchdown to this. It feels like a week has passed. The other thing that was crazy about this to me was the first three quarters were over by 10. That last quarter lasted what felt like an eternity. Look, he mentioned about the effort and the energy. This is the Jerry Jeudy game. And Myles Garrett's phenomenal, but you know what Myles Garrett is. He was great. But if you're talking about who sort of set their legacy relative to being with the Browns now, this was the Jerry Jeudy game. He was great. And he came up big every time they needed him to come up big. And I hated the fact that they were at empty on the play where he made the big conversion. I hate it because I'm sitting there watching going, look, if there's no threat of run, all these guys do is run up and put their hands up, which got the one deflected pass. But beautiful ball. I could not believe they got it. And this is the second year in a row where the Browns out-Steelers the Steelers. You know, everybody was ready for it. Everybody was ready for it in terms of, this is how the Browns lose it. This is how the Steelers win. And yet it was the Browns doing what the Steelers have done for so many years. It's what the Browns did last year with DTR as a rookie quarterback, game-winning drive. Jameis Winston now has a game-winning drive. It's great for him. It's obviously great, a huge load off for the organization as a whole to just be able to enjoy this one because so many people were like, well, 2-15, they're never going to win another game. Look at the schedule, where are the wins? And not only have they beaten the Ravens, now they've beaten the Steelers. And yes, the season's still what it is, but you can enjoy this and sit there and go, Kevin Stefanski is really good against the AFC North, and he's a huge pain in the ass to Mike Tomlin and to John Harbaugh, who have like about 57 years combined of coaching experience in the NFL.
Yeah, guys, I feel like I missed it. Did I miss this? I feel like I missed the announcement. Maybe I missed the announcement. I feel like I missed the announcement before the game that TJ Watt wasn't playing in this game. I feel like I missed the announcement before this game.
You know, before the game, this week when Myles Garrett, like, I was worried when he said, talked about how he TJ Watt sort of, he didn't say it, but he was sort of hinting at the fact that TJ Watt complained about the Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sitting there, come on, Myles, your feet are killing you. Please don't do this. I don't need TJ Watt to do nothing for 58 minutes and then get some random fumble bounce to him. But yeah, look, Jack Conklin has gotten so much crap for 2 years, and he was fantastic. And he's clearly the best lineman on this team. Again, this is another one of those things where, for all the things that have gone wrong this season, that is one that's gone really, really well. Jack Conklin was great.
Yeah. Well, and
so
I think the game plan against TJ Watt, like you said, was great. You watch the Steelers try to run a similar, I think they tried to run a similar game plan against Myles Garrett in that first half. Myles just kept beating the chips. Like the way the Steelers were trying to chip him and kind of double him was real weak. Whereas I feel like the Browns were really forceful in the way they attacked TJ Watt. And it just constantly, the guy's ribs have got to be killing him after this game. Constantly felt like there were elbows and forearms being thrown into him, knocking him. They would just shove him into the middle of the offensive line and let them just absorb him. The game plan was really great. It's TJ Watt usually is a problem for the Browns, and they really took care of business against him tonight.
They led the broadcast with all, his greatness against the Browns, which is justified, and did nothing. Yeah. It was like last year with DeJuan Jones in the first matchup, who just shut him down. Just outstanding effort on that.
As the chat is mentioning, Blake Whitebeard with the catch of the night, tremendous.
I thought it was David Njoku in the snow. I thought it was David Njoku, and then I was like, oh my God, that's not him.
And then Akins drops the wide open touchdown one to him, comes back, catches the next one. There's just so many fun plays. But Whitebeard played a good game, blocking as well. Njoku drops in the end zone. It was a crazy game, man. But a lot of fun. And for Winston to throw that pick and come back good, that's hard to do, man.
All the familiar banana peels. They stepped on all of them and figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard to do, man, to do that, put it out of your mind, and then lead the game-winning drive after that. That takes some chutzpah, right? And he did it. And I want to see more of Jameis, man. And Judy was, as Pete said so eloquently, I mean, this was his night, man. He was unbelievable. That catch, the throw going out of bounds in between like four defenders to go up and catch that in the snow was both an incredible pass and B, an unbelievable catch in that circumstance by Judy and Winston. And somebody was asking about what happened at the end of the game. I'm not sure, but when I watched the replay, it looked like Pickens was pulling Newsom's helmet as he went out of bounds into the back, and they ended up kind of in a little scrum on the ground. Security had to split them up or whatever. Par for the course in this matchup.
And George Pickens cried about 17 different times in this game.
Well, he had a case
one last set
I'm not sure what Emerson
carried him off.
Emerson's philosophy and coverage tonight was, I'm just going to mug everybody and hope they don't call it. And it worked out. It worked.
Make them call it. I don't know. Did they call pass interference the entire game on anyone?
No. And the one time he was running right by him, and it literally looked like Emerson just armbarred him out of bounds.
I thought Emerson was going to intercept that ball. I thought he was going to intercept that ball. He had great position there. Yeah. He turned his head early. Remember, early in the game, Pickens made that great catch on a third down. Denzel Ward it was an underthrown pass that Denzel Ward just never got his head around on. Emerson got his head around on that one. I thought, man, he's coming down with an interception. He just never found the ball. And he got lucky he didn't get called for a pass interference on that one.
Yeah. And Greg makes a good point. It was going both ways, but boy, did they get some shots in on Russell douchebag Wilson. I mean, he literally Miles put one right on his ribs the one time, and he would look so fast going in on that one. And then on the last play, somebody got him in the ribs too. But they did it legally, so whatever, that's fine. But good stuff from the Browns. They played hard, man. They played super hard.
Well, guys, it felt a little bit like a tale of two halves. In the first half, defensively, the Browns came out hot. They came out hot, and they really stayed hot for the entire first half. when the offense was really struggling to kind of get it going, right? The offense started with a couple 3-and-outs early. They couldn't stay on the field. And defensively, you'll remember back when you could see all that green grass out on the field, as it apparently was fall when the game started, and then it just led straight into winter in the second half of the game. But just talk about, boys, the defensive effort in the first half of the game, because you saw Myles Garrett with 3 sacks in the first half. Obviously, the one where he just, like, I don't even know how he got to the ball to strip Russell Wilson of the football. It didn't even look like he was close, and then all of a sudden the ball was on the ground. But 3 sacks for Myles Garrett in that first half. And I was worried a little bit with the inefficiency of the offense in the first half. I was worried that we were going to see that wear down that we've seen so much this season of they come out and play really well to start the game, but then when they just don't get any rest, they wear down as the half goes on. And you just didn't see it. They seem to get stronger going towards the half defensively. So what did you see out there with these guys that made them just so good defensively to start this game off? Go ahead, Pete.
I mean, so much of it came down to what they were able to accomplish on fourth down, and that really was the story of the game in many ways. 1 of 3, they got 2 big stops. But yeah, to your point, I think the Steelers had like the ball 13 minutes of the first quarter, and it just went on and on and on. But the Browns were able to hold when they needed to. They made the big play to Calvin Austin. They bowed up and stopped them. They had a number of those sort of splash plays, but what has sort of been problematic for the Steelers all year, they get down the field and then they stall out. Now, some of that was some curious play calling, but like this was partly because of the way the Browns were playing the defense, and they were a little bit more conservative in certain situations. They tried to do a lot of like perimeter and like even the reverse we saw in the second half. They didn't get fooled by the misdirection stuff. They did a really good job of, one, winning at the point of attack inside and trying to contain them on the outside. The only thing the Browns really gave up, I think, with any consistency was the cutback runs where they really shifted hard one way and were able to cut back. But overall, like, you know, you would have, going into this game, if you thought they were going to run that reverse, you're like, oh man, that's going to kill them. But they were right on top of it. They did that a number of times in terms of just being able to play. In fact, the first fourth down play they ran was basically the exact play, different formation, but exact same philosophy as Taysom Hill, which was get the snap, wait for the blocks to sort of sort themselves out, and then find a hole. And the Browns were aggressive, especially off that left side. And Justin Fields is like looking at it and going, where do I go? And they just swarmed him. And that was, the Browns were more aggressive. I think in those situations, they felt more assertive in the right way, as opposed to being sort of reckless with their aggression, which was key in this game. They took it to them. I think the Steelers have been able to rely on a lot of young players on the offensive line, and the Browns were just better than they were in this game in a lot of ways that maybe you wouldn't have expected, the way the Browns have way the Steelers have been able to run the football. Broderick Jones struggled obviously against Myles Garrett, but their interior line play got beat up quite a bit on some of those key situations. The thing I was surprised the Steelers didn't try to run more of was trap. They hit it big once. They kind of came back to it one more time and got snuffed out, and then they got out of it, which was, you know, if you're trying to beat Myles Garrett, that is the play to run, because he can't do anything about it. But overall, Browns were good. They tackled well. I know Grant Delpit's going to catch a bunch of crap for a lot of things. He was phenomenal in the box, particularly early in the game.
He was great.
Mahmoud Diabate continues to be a guy I'm really a fan of because of how aggressive he is. And Winston Reed, the undrafted free agent, this is a Winston Reed football game. All he wants to do is hit people. That's it. Yes. All he wants to do is line up and hit people. The Browns
fullback,
like him so much. Yeah, they put him in fullback because he likes to hit people. That's who he is. And this was a slobber knocker type game where he was able to do that, and the Browns were able to win. Najee Harris, they beat him. Like him and Russell Wilson, I'm amazed how tough they are, because they took shot after shot after shot. In fact, to Brad's point about Russell Wilson, like the one where Najee Harris is fighting and fighting and fighting, and the ball pops out. That's the one where Russell Wilson had to go recover the ball and legitimately got stunned. They had to take a timeout there, and he took shot after shot. And then, you know, all the credit in the world to Russell Wilson on that cover 2 throw that he made in the end zone, which, by the way, if you're not watching Prime Vision, oh my God, that was a thing of beauty. The ball just disappears into the snow and they come up with the other way. Their cameras are incredible. So watching the game like that, I thought it made this game even better, because you were able to see exactly where everybody was lined up, exactly where they were attacking. and it just made it a way better experience to watch.
Hey, Brad, real quick, I know a lot of the talk in the first half because you focus in on the big players making big plays. So a lot of the talk, obviously, in the first half of this football game defensively is going to be about what Myles Garrett did to just wreck the game plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think we have to give a little credit. And I know, Pete, you hit on it a little bit, but Brad, I also want to know just kind of what you saw. The Steelers got into situations that they normally really like a couple times in that first half, which is 3rd and short, 4th and short, areas where they're usually really good at converting. And the Browns, on a couple of occasions in that first half, they got down to a 4th down and 1, and the Browns absolutely dominated them on 4th and 1. So, that's as much of a big part of the way this game started as anything else, is the Browns were able to just get off the field.
Yeah, they played with a level of physicality that we haven't seen for some weeks here up front. And you guys were talking about them playing the run, and even on those 4th downs, and you mentioned Delpit, but Delpit, I thought Devin Bush actually played one of his better games as a Brown, shooting, gaps in the run game. Diabate, same. Jordan Hicks, same. So the guys up front were doing enough to get push or not let, huge holes create in the safeties, especially Delpit. And even a couple times I saw Newsome flying up there to grab some ankles. We're able to just shoot through gaps in the front and make tackles in the backfield. They were swarming the ball when they would, a couple times they got the play strung out to the outside and corners came up and tackled. And maybe not. It might have taken like 3 of them to bring him to the ground, but they got him to the ground. You know what I mean? So I was just thought that their plan was pretty much we have to win the line of scrimmage. And if they're going to beat us on those deep balls against one-on-one coverage on the outside, then that's fine. But we're not going to let them run it on us all night. And I think that dedication of just making sure that your linebackers and safeties were constantly up there at the line of scrimmage in the box, playing the run and living with what happened down the field was a good game plan, and it worked out well for Steelers. It's kind of how you have to play them.
I love. I got to tell you, it's been such a long season, and you come out of the bye last week and you just lay the egg of eggs, and man, the vibes are so high tonight in Cleveland. It's just to do it against Pittsburgh and to do it on national TV. Man, I love how high the vibes are. I think one of the big storylines, they talked about it a lot on the game, guys, but man, when you talk about some of the weird things that happened in this game, how about the Cleveland Browns just won a football game? They just won a football game in which they were 1 of 10 converting 3rd down. 1 of 10 on 3rd down. And 4 of 4 on 4th down. They were perfect on 4th down. And the one conversion they made on 3rd down, was that incredible throw on an incredible route by Jerry Jeudy, Jameis Winston to Jerry Jeudy late in the game. And it was really that 3rd down conversion that helped them win the game. But otherwise, they were horrible on 3rd down. They were perfect on 4th down. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like that stat and seeing a team win the game the way that the Browns did.
I think there's something to the idea that when you've lost faith in your kicker a little bit, and this doesn't explain the whole sample size, certainly, but I think that your play calling on 3rd down sometimes changes a little bit, knowing that you're going to go for it on 4th down.
That was big. There's no question that I think the Browns and the Steelers did too. It just didn't work. Both teams called it like they're a lot of situations where they're going to go for it on 4th down. The Steelers tried it multiple times. The Browns were up to the task of stopping it. But the Browns did the same thing. They basically called plays as if they were content to just be aggressive and do it. Now, converting the 4th and 4 to Jerry Jeudy on the sideline was great. One of my favorite trends that has developed this year is the Browns have finally figured out how to offensively pass interfere correctly and rub. Like David Njoku is really good at it now in terms of being able to get in the way and jam guys out of the way. This is something the Browns have struggled with for years. You should like everybody else does this well. Why can't the Browns? But they figured it out. Look, I mean, those are the key plays you have to have. Those are what win football games. And again, these are the plays that normally the Steelers make and beat you. And the Browns were able to make that play when they had to, and to the third down you're talking about. When they had to have it, they got it. Despite all the mistakes, all the craziness, they were able to just make the one more play. And it was, Jameis Winston is the quarterback in this one. It's like an extension of what last year felt like so much of the time, where there were any number of fans who gave up on the team. Everybody up, it's over, and then they just figured it out and won. And that was not unlike the Ravens game, where it was sort of gave you that feeling that we had last year. Obviously, a little bit more fun because the Browns were in contention and everything else, but you got that attitude, that mindset that you saw on display. And again, you beat the Ravens and the Steelers. Both teams were in first place at the time. And you have just become you're just a pain in the ass, which is obviously you want this team to be better. You want this team to be up there where they are the 8-2 team, and you want all these things. And it doesn't change any of the frustrations with it. But like, these are things where you can sit there and point to with the injuries and everything else that's gone wrong this season. And you go, these are building blocks where you can sit here and go, yeah, but this is where we stepped up. This is where we had to have it, and we got it. And these are things you can build on. And there's been a lot of criticism of culture and all this other stuff. Like, this was a culture victory in the way that you want the team to behave throughout the game, all the way to the fourth quarter, because there was a moment in time where it was a great effort for 3.5 quarters. And look, I tell you, good things are good, bad things are bad. This was good.
That's bam. We're out. See you later. It's been the post-game show. That's expert analysis. Yeah, listen. There were I do want to take a minute because this is celebratory episode of the post-game show when you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football on a snow globe game in the middle of downtown Cleveland. This is a celebratory episode, and it makes a lot of things feel better about this season. But there was that moment. There was that moment in this game where the Cleveland Browns kind of felt like it felt kind of like the lead was comfortable there for a minute, didn't it? Felt like the lead was comfortable for a minute, and then the Browns let the Steelers
18-6.
Yeah, the Browns let the Steelers march down the field. They assist the Steelers with some really stupid penalties. They allow the Steelers to go in. You can complain about that roughing the passer call. It was textbook. It's a textbook roughing the passer. There's nothing to complain about. You do have Grant Delpit making the dumbest decision of all time to rip a dude's mouth guard off of his helmet and throw it onto the ground right in front of the official. It's dumb. It was stupid. And you let them score a touchdown. Obviously, then Nick Herbig, who's been really good for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, comes through and gets a strip sack of Jameis Winston. Jameis's worst play.
Almost untouched off the edge.
Just untouched.
Barely got him.
And then the Steelers come down and just immediately score another touchdown. And next thing you know, you blinked and it goes from 18-6 to 19 to 18 Steelers really quick. So there's still a couple of those things that the coaches can go in there and say, hey, Grant, the hell was that? The hell was that, buddy?
He was feeling himself. Listen, I know what happened. I know it was dumb. He was feeling himself. He had been playing. Listen, he played a hell of a game, dude. Yes. He was everywhere. And listen, I'll say this. Grant Delpit is a hell of a football player, period. Mm-hmm. He's a good NFL safety. He's all over the place. He makes a lot of good plays. He got beat on that. He got out leveraged on that touchdown when they were in man-to-man early. But, I mean, he was up. He is in your face playing the run all day. He is a physical safety, tackles well. And he was feeling himself, and he made a bad mistake. They were up at that point. That was before the strip sack, right? They were up 18-6 at that point. They were feeling the momentum. Pickens is an asshole, and he wanted to, and he was talking trash with him, so he pulled the thing out, whatever. And that's part of, whatever he was feeling. It was dumb. I'm not excusing it. It was dumb, but he was feeling himself at the time, and he was talking trash to Pickens, and he made a bad mistake. Can't do it. Got to be better than that, but It was funny kind of at the moment, but
so like it's one of those.
Was it funny, Brad? Was it funny? I did not find myself laughing at the moment.
it was like a 3-yard penalty. It was like it was a 15-yard penalty. They were already inside the 10. It was like a 3-yard penalty.
So the Jordan Hicks one, I feel bad for Jordan Hicks. The footing is awful, but it's a textbook penalty. But you're like, I don't know if he even could sort of maneuver, but it's
you just got to
right on the money
at least.
Yeah, I mean, you have to call it. The Grant Delpit one, you're sort of walking on a knife's edge. On the one hand, you want the defense to play with the swagger that he has. You want that attitude, that sort of fearlessness, that sort of, we're going to beat, we know we're down here and we're still going to beat you. I like that, but you can't, he obviously crossed the line, and that's where it goes from being confident, from swagger, to just being a knucklehead. And obviously they're going to have to, get after him and do the whole kangaroo court thing with that. But yeah, I mean, to his point, I don't love it now that they've won, but it doesn't, I don't have to deal with a week of hearing how the Browns need to fire Grant Delpit into the sun, because that somehow lost the game, as if there weren't a whole lot of other things that would have happened. The Jordan Akins miss jump, miss pass thing, and all these other plays that would have happened. But if they lose, Grant Delpit is never hearing the end of this, which is annoying. So yeah, it's one of those things. I want swagger from the defense. I want them to be confident. This is why I've never been mad at the defense when they, celebrate and do stuff, even when they're losing, because you have to have that mindset. You are playing to lose as slowly as possible on defense. You want guys that have the confidence to be able to go, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make that play again. And on the 2-point conversion, he did. And that became a big factor, because listen, if they get that 2-point conversion, it was what, 24-21. If they probably kick the extra point at that point, but even so, like, that changes the dynamic of 2-point conversion they tried to get. Had they got it, would have made this into a tie. But since they didn't, the Steelers could have marched down the field and scored. But Grant Delpit being able to be in position and to prevent the 2-point conversion was important after all. So I want him to be able to bounce back, have a next play mentality, get in there and play good defense. I don't want guys to sit there and feel bad about themselves endlessly. I want them to move on. He did it. That's good.
Boys, I do want to talk about, if you're asking me the thing that got me most worked up, most excited, and the thing that I loved the most about this game is that the resiliency of the Browns returned in this game. They have been a horrendously non-resilient bunch of football players this season. When bad things have happened, they have let them compound into worse things. All you have to do is look at last week's game against the Saints. And it was one bad thing led to 10 more bad things. And in this game, it's like it came back. It was their trademark last year, guys. It was their trademark, is that they could take a punch and they would never stop. They would never stop fighting. This year, it has not been the case. But this game, the resiliency returned for the Cleveland Browns, because it wasn't just the things that the Pittsburgh Steelers were doing to try to win this football game, but it was, like you just said, Pete, it was some of the mistakes the Cleveland Browns made in this game. You talk about that Jordan Akins kind of weird mistimed jump play, but it was also an inaccurate throw. You talk about Jameis Winston letting the ball I think that ball slipped out of his hand, to be honest with you, on the interception late in the game. They overcame several things. That for a lot of games in this season would have caused them to lose games. And this game, they just always found a way. And I don't know if there's a play that incorporates the toughness and the resiliency better for the Cleveland Browns tonight than that Jameis Winston rushing touchdown. That was unbelievable. He fought for it. He got rushed out of the pocket. He was trying to throw the ball. He got rushed out. He gets hit at the end zone. He flips into the end zone. He lands on the back of his neck. And I just felt like the fight was back for the Cleveland Browns tonight, didn't it? Like, it just felt like that team we expect to see that's going to fight for 60 minutes of football was back.
Given the circumstances where they just had to drop, absolutely. If you're asking me my favorite moment of the game, it's the play before Nick Chubb scored the second touchdown. It had that breaking the Ravens defense feel, where they get that big surge. He's able to punch forward, get to the 1 yard line. I felt like that was the moment the Steelers defense sort of broke. And just like it did with the Ravens. Now in the Ravens game last year, it was obviously different. The game was over at that point. But in this particular instance, it set up the game-winning touchdown, what would be the game-winning touchdown. And not only that, it's Nick Chubb doing both plays. Nick Chubb, who was not great by any stretch in this game, but was just the determination, the effort. I got so sick of seeing Steelers defenders twisting him down.
Yes.
Like,
oh my God.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I get why they have to do it. You want to stop his momentum. I've just got so fed up watching this of them just twisting him to the ground. So the push, it was the same situation as it was last year. You had linemen getting behind him and pushing the pile and breaking the Steelers front and getting through and making a big play. And Nick Chubb had a number of big plays, a number of big fourth down carries. So his numbers don't look great, but the impact plays he had and that spirit, and Kevin Stefanski just said straight up in the postgame press conference that Nick Chubb is his favorite player on the team. And he also said his favorite child, she's not here. So yeah, like how do you not feel good about that? And Jameis Winston, I guess, was asked about him, and he said, the 2-score game, and he said, I don't believe in coincidences. So you got Nick Chubb coming back against the Steelers, getting 2 touchdowns, obviously goes out with a horrific injury. So that in some ways has to feel so good for Nick Chubb in every way possible and everybody on this team, which makes it more meaningful because everybody views Nick Chubb and sort of that hallowed light of what he is for this team and what he means and the spirit and everything else.
I was going to say, when you talk about this team and, when it's so weird because I used to talk about the 22 team and be like, man, they were really unlikable, a hard team to like. But the 23 team was such an easy team to like. Like they were so easy to root for. And a lot of that is what you're talking about, like overcoming it. Once you get into the throes of these games, do they have the resilience to overcome their own mistakes and other teams, what they throw at you and the fight, right? You're talking about. And they had that fight tonight. But I would say that, like, I think there are a lot of guys on this team that have that. But when you take the first 8 games and you kind of suck the energy out of everything and your quarterback play is god awful time and you're not really in games like this, then it's hard to generate the kind of fight that you get tonight when you're led by somebody like Jameis Winston or somebody that's engaged at all times and Nick Chubb is out there and there's, you know what I mean? I think there's factors at play here that, I don't think you can just paint the whole thing with a broad stroke like that. You know what I mean? I think there are who is leading you, who is on the field matters. I think big time.
I may be misreading this, but I'm always willing to call out a bad comment in the comments. I believe T. Young says, see you in 2 weeks, as if he's a Steelers fan. Why don't you suck on this loss for the next 2 weeks? And then, we'll see you. Shut up, T. Let's go to the Nick Chubb conversation because I was kind of saving this for last because, again, you can't not be jazzed up about this game. I think if you look at the stats for Nick Chubb, you're going to see a guy that ran for like 3 yards a carry. And then it feels like everything was a little bit of a slog for him. But I do think a lot of times in this game, you saw what he is and what he means for this offense, which is sometimes you just need a guy that can fall forward and get you 3 yards, right? Like, I as dumb as that might sound, I think a lot of the reason the Browns were maybe good on 4th downs in this game is they faced several 4th and very shorts. And a lot of that was because Nick Chubb got us to a point where maybe he fell forward and got us into that situation. And so, no, he didn't break off the big run. He didn't run for 150 yards, but Nick Chubb ran really hard. He had 20 rushes in this game. He had 2 touchdowns, and it just felt like, and I don't know, you guys, I'll let you guys analyze it a little bit better than what I'm doing, but like, it just felt like when you can put the game on this guy's back and say, hey, Jameis can make big throws. Jerry Jeudy can make big catches. Akins and Whitebeard and Njoku and Elijah Moore made a couple big catches. But when you can put the game on this guy's back and just kind of rely on him to get you in better situations, it just changes everything for the offense, doesn't it?
Well, there's two things. First, I hope that Steelers fan, that turkey tastes just a little bit bitter after Thanksgiving. Second, as far as Nick Chubb, I remember talking to this with Joe Batonio when J.C. Treader was on the team. J.C. Treader couldn't practice and would just go out and play. And he always referred to him as like, if he can do that, I don't have an excuse. So I think Myles Garrett and particularly Nick Chubb take away excuses. I don't care what side of the ball you're on, because all these guys who are on this team, unless they were added, recently, saw what Nick Chubb was going through in terms of trying to work back from the injury. He was in the facility before everybody else, left after everybody else, doing everything he possibly could to get himself back and on the field. And when you watch this guy play, I mean, even when he came back to practice the first day, you saw the amount of, the enthusiasm, the energy the guys have for him. And then you see it in the game, like he makes you want to play harder. He's that type of guy. He doesn't have to say it. He doesn't have to be that vocal guy. He just wills you to be better. Like we, again, talk about culture. Why is Nick Chubb so valuable? With a knee injury, and talk of, well, maybe they should let him go. Maybe they should move on because he's not going to be the same, or we don't know what he's going to be. But it's these type of things. And the same thing, I would look at the same thing for the Steelers, a guy like Cam Hayward. Why do you keep extending him? He's 53 years old and he's still playing at an all-pro level, because those guys take away excuses for everybody else. You have to play harder when you watch a guy like Nick Chubb come back from what he did and just will your team forward in these situations. So yeah, it's huge. I think those types of things are massive for, again, we talk about culture. We talk about what do we want to see from our players. Nick Chubb, you're not going to find a better example of a football player than Nick Chubb in terms of who you should emulate. Hard work, all the other things. And that's why he becomes so special. That's, and part of the fact is he doesn't talk, which makes it easier for everybody to enjoy because he doesn't say anything objectionable. But it also just, the silent guy who just wills your team forward is such a huge part of who the Browns are and why he and some of these other guys, but him most of all, sort of defined this era of Browns football and what we've seen these past couple of years in these type of games.
Yeah, a little bit more. Very well said. As far as what he means to the team and all that, absolutely. Listen, as far as Chubb goes, I really hope they re-sign him, because you see the special things that he does, his vision, his ability, his patience in setting up blocks, especially in short yardage. Like, he's a lock to get that yard or two on fourth down a lot of times against a really good defense, right? A really good front. And so the burst isn't there yet, but his vision and patience, you see that coming. And I've said this a lot of times with these kind of injuries, it's the season after the season that the guy gets to really be back to, like, athletically where he was, if he's going to. So while he still does special things, ran hard, broke some critical tackles down near the goal line to get in and stuff like that. All that stuff was huge. He shows you the glimpses that you need, and he's found an effective role for this team in the meantime. So I just want to, I just hope they keep him around for the long haul, because he means that much,
Well, I think this regime's not going anywhere. I can't state this enough. I've been consistent on this. And this is part of the reason why. Like, Nick Chubb's not going to let them fire these guys either. Like, he doesn't want to see these people leave. And if they were to do that, they may not want him back. He may not want to come back as much as he's loyal to Cleveland and all these other things. I think there is an element of, does Nick Chubb really want to start over again in that sort of sense? I don't think anyone is interested in that. But yeah, obviously you hope for the best in terms of Nick Chubb somehow returning to the player we saw. And we've seen glimpses. We saw a 3-carry stretch last week where he got 27 yards on 3 carries real quick that helped lead to the second touchdown to Elijah Moore. We see him just gutting it out and fighting and just muscling his way forward. And maybe right this second, that's what he has to be. He has to be the guy that muscles forward, as opposed to the guy who can sort of just be so graceful and anticipate everything and get out of the way. But either way, he did what he had to do to somehow make it work. And by the way, George Pickens is still talking. His quote The conditions played a huge part in today's game. I really don't think the Cleveland Browns are a good team at all.
Oh,
yep.
We don't think your team was any good tonight as you swallowed that loss at the end of the game, George. No, and I think you guys, and it's what we consistently saw. And it's just Nick Chubb just produces a lot of those plays where maybe he only goes for 2 or 3 yards, but it's a play that felt like it should have been a loss. And he keeps his legs turning, and then the offensive linemen get involved, and they start pushing him forward. And those are like momentum plays. Those are momentum plays that make you feel like you're moving forward. And that's great to see. I think the other thing is, and guys, I know there weren't big numbers, there weren't gaudy numbers out of this, but the other running back, having Jerome Ford back, is it just me, guys? Is it just me, or does Jerome Ford look bigger and stronger than he has ever looked before? Like Jerome, I know it's not big gaudy numbers. He ran for like 5 yards a carry tonight. But Jerome looks big out there. He looks like a guy that's ready to, like, I don't want to say take that next step or become like a premier back. But as far as a role that he is set to fill as kind of a backup, a guy that can spell Nick Chubb for a bit, Jerome, in my opinion, I was watching this game tonight going, wait, when did Jerome Ford get that big? He looked bigger and stronger than ever.
I've always looked at Jerome Ford. I've always been a fan of Jerome Ford. I just think Nick Chubb sets him in the right role for him. He's not a feature back, but as a change of pace guy, as a guy who comes in and he's a little bit more straight line speed in terms of just like attacking and hitting the whole fat. He does a lot of the things that Kareem Hunt did stylistically. He's a better pass catcher. He's going to just go at times, and by virtue of getting fewer touches and fewer opportunities, he can't sort of play around. He has to go because he knows he's only got so many bites of the apple. So he's got to make the most of it. And yeah, you do see the strength. You see that his ability to sort of take on a sort of more tired defense and give you some extra plays. And then the fact that he is somebody who can be a receiving threat out of the backfield, you have to account for him. And that gives you some extra opportunities. So I continue to be a fan of Jerome Ford and what he offers. And if Nick Chubb can be, if there's a world where he gets back to being Nick Chubb, I think that combination becomes very dangerous. I don't think Jerome Ford's ever going to be a star, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to be a guy who comes in and does his job. And that's what we got. And that was what he was drafted to be. He was supposed basically to replace the impact Kareem Hunt does. And I think right now it's not as sexy in terms of what they were doing in like 2020, but I think he does a good job at fulfilling that role.
He did a good job tonight when he was in, to Pete's point. He got north and south quickly, and his burst, that's kind of like the difference you see, right? Like you see Nick Chubb running, and he runs hard, and he picks his spots, and he sets stuff up, and but when he was in there, you notice the difference in the burst, right? With Ford tonight. And I think that's just like what I look forward to seeing from Chubb too. But you needed that tonight. He got north and south quickly. He took on blockers. He was physical. So I thought he did a good job when he got here, especially late in the game. He got some key yards.
All right, boys, 2 things I want to hit on before we get out of here. One, I do think, especially after last week and especially after really a lot of weeks this season, I do want to give a little shout out to Bubba Ventrone and the special teams unit for the Cleveland Browns, especially the kick coverage units for the Cleveland Browns. There were a couple times in this game. Listen, the special teams have not been great for the Browns this season. Especially the kick and punt coverage units have not been great for the Cleveland Browns this season. There were a couple times in this game where maybe it wasn't a great punt by Bojorquez, or Hopkins left a pretty returnable kickoff that really got covered well. There were a couple times where my heart started like kind of skipping a beat, like, oh God, this looks like it's going to be a big return. And they didn't let that happen. Again, I think when you piece all of these pieces together and you look at these other games that have happened this season, and you look at special teams have been terrible, which have allowed the other teams to start with amazing field position, which has then put your defense in a bad position, and then they failed. then your offense is pressing, and it's like this vicious cycle. Tonight, if we're giving credit to all these other areas of the team that deserve credit for this win, I do think the special teams unit for the Cleveland Browns deserves some credit for this win tonight.
Good job, special teams. No, just kidding. They had pressure on that punt. They got some good push up the middle on that punt, and it may have affected that shank late. They got the Browns really good field position on the punt, but they were a good rush up the middle there. I think it may have affected that kick. Certainly.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest part of the special teams unit was just how bad that punt was. Like they were on the Steelers half of the field, and it obviously reduced how far they had to go. And I don't know how many people had confidence that the Browns could drive 75 yards under those circumstances, but they got enough in that scenario or got lucky, whichever. But yeah, special teams did better. Dustin Hopkins made the kicks he had to make. You didn't see the issue other than the first punt of the game. The first punt of the game was obviously not good, but then the dude from the Steelers, DeMonte Casey, who just threw Mike Ford into like the street, the neighboring parking lot, and then to have the official come back and try to argue that he was pulling him. It was like
pulling him there.
Yeah, it was like insane. But yeah, I mean, look, it's really hard to win these games like these conditions, these type of events, unless you have everybody show up in some form or fashion. Doesn't mean they're always great, but you got at least have one impact play, one moment where they come through for you. And for the most part, the special teams was solid. And obviously they had to be. Last week was awful. And Bubba Ventrone's had a rough sophomore campaign. So he needed it. So good for him.
And I did not want to leave it that, to a kick at the end. No. Had to punch that one in.
Absolutely not. I mean,
no.
That was the most interesting part to this whole game to me. If you're boiling it down, Mike Tomlin declined that penalty about 5 times before accepting it, and I thought that was the best situation for the Browns was when they
100%.
I thought they were going to let him kick it and potentially miss and win the game right there, but they made them take the penalty, got them the ball back, and ultimately the Browns were able to convert. I think if they got to do that one over again, he would have declined it for a 6th time and kept it declined and potentially won the game on that. Now, maybe Dustin Hopkins comes through. I know he's battling injury this year and everything else, but these conditions, I think you make him kick it.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, boys, last topic of the night. I think we've spent a lot of time this year talking about implications and where this team goes and what these things mean and all of that. But when you watch the Cleveland Browns play in this game tonight, I do think still at 3-8, knowing that the season is not going to go where we want it to go, but at 3-8, and when you watch the game the way it was played tonight, and when you watch the way they were handling the Steelers tonight, just talk a little bit about the rest of this season and how this game kind of changes the way you view the rest of the season and what you're really looking for out of this team moving forward for the rest of 2024 and obviously into the offseason into 2025.
Well, I'll just say this. The guys on the broadcast were correct. The Browns fans tonight at the stadium to show up,
unreal.
No Steelers takeover, no terrible towels. Like they were talking about it. They're like, we've seen this place before where Steelers fans, Browns 2-8, all Browns fans there, stay till the end. All the shots of all the dudes with their shirts off.
Oh God!
He commented in the chat. Anyways, hilarious. But stayed till the end. I mean, that's crazy, dude. That's amazing fandom. Especially after like all the conversation that you're talking about and all the how down people have been. I don't know. Anyways, you know how I feel about it. I think that this regime should be back. I believe in this coach. I think it'd be crazy to move on from him. And I think that tonight is just more proof of you saw a lot of things tonight in a game competitive like this that you can evaluate. Who showed up in the big times? Jerry Jeudy showing out tonight was awesome, right? Like how huge is that for the future? And not only just tonight, but leading up the last few weeks too. But he really put a stamp on that tonight. I hope said Tillman's okay, but he made a couple good catches. Terrible fumble, Looney Tunes fumble. But still, yeah, he threw that one, almost threw that ball into the sun. But anyways, he got popped on the sideline by somebody, so I think he had concussion. Is that right? Anyways, I love said Tillman. He's physical. He got that concussion trying to get that extra yard. You know what I mean? But you are seeing fight out of guys like that are young players that we expect to be here and have an impact. And that's what you should be rooting for the rest of the year. And these wins like this matter. They do. They don't matter for this year, but they matter in your evaluation of who you're going to be down the line. They certainly do.
Yeah, look, I mean, what you want to see is you want the team for 2025 to sort of reveal itself and play better football. And Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and Isaiah McGuire and those guys, those young players, Mahmoud Diabate, have already been doing that, but getting more and more of those guys. Elijah Moore continues to make an argument he should be re-signed. And Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, like guys you know are going to be here almost certainly with Nick Chubb, David Njoku, all these players, you want them to play well and sort of leave you with the feeling of, yes, this season sucked, but next year will be better. And these are all the reasons why, even as, you know, the things they have to address in the offseason lay themselves bare. You want to be able to feel good about the effort of this team and the fight in this team as you leave this season. And, you know, the record may not be indicative of that fight, but games like, even if, you know, it would have been obviously crushing to lose this game, but you still would have been at least able to respect the fight they had. You want to see that in all the games. You want to see those guys continue to take steps forward. And if it's going to be Jameis Winston next year, you need him to continue to show that he's that guy. But 3 out of the 4 games he's played, I mean, I'll keep saying it, like, Kevin Stefanski makes quarterbacks who are not named Deshaun Watson better at football. He has turned into Joe Flacco. Just immediately, you have watched him become Joe Flacco almost immediately with some stylistic changes and a little bit, but like ultimately you are watching what we saw last year in terms of the style they play. There's volatility. There's big plays. It's super fun to watch on offense, which I got killed for last week saying the offense was fun to watch, but it was. It is fun to watch this team play offense outside of the first quarter in this game and just watch to see what they can do because you have all these players that you don't necessarily know what they're going to be with Tillman and these receivers, and you're just watching these guys get better and better and better. And all of a sudden, I'm old enough to remember at the beginning of the season when the receivers are too slow to run this offense, and now they're like the most fun part about the offense.
Yes.
That we can sit here and enjoy and sit here and go, man, if they can get, you know, you want to leave the season with the feeling, man, if the Browns can do this and this and this, that they're going to be right back in the mix, which is where I think what I think they will be heading into next year. It doesn't mean they're going to be a Super Bowl contender or anything else, but you're at least going to be able to go into the games going, man, this team's a lot of fun. They're going to win. They're going to play hard. And you can at least be proud of the effort. That's, to me, what the rest of the season's all about.
I want to give a little leadership shout out to Denzel Ward, who also played a pretty good game tonight. I know he gave up the big catch to Pickens early in the game, but he was pretty good the rest of the game. But Denzel Ward, pretty vocal after that loss to the Saints last week, pretty vocal in talking about how embarrassing that was to let the Saints run for over 200 yards and guys running free down the field and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and all that. And he talked a lot about how embarrassed they were after that game against the Saints. And Denzel Ward and this Cleveland Browns defense came to play tonight. The offense came to play tonight. And boys, in the end, the Cleveland Browns win 24-19 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to wrap it up here on the OBR post-game show. We want to give a couple shout-outs first, and shame on me for not getting to it earlier, but Core Home Fitness, make sure you get over to corehomefitness.com for all of your in-home fitness needs, getting in shape, especially now that the weather, you saw the weather tonight. You saw it. The snow is here, ladies and gents. We are done with this weird, warm fall, early winter type situation. It's time to be in the house now. It's time to be in the house. And when you're in the house, it's time to get in shape so that next year, when it's time for you to be one of those guys on TV with your shirts off, cheering for the Cleveland Browns in the cold, you're looking maybe a little bit better than those guys look tonight with your shirts off.
Good call.
And you can
Fat
do
shirtless
that.
guys, very well represented in this game, but let's hit the core home fitness.
You can do that. You can next year. How about this? Let's get those guys. Let's get those guys involved. And next year, those guys come back. Let's get those guys back with rock hard abs and some beefy biceps because they have worked out with Core Home Fitness. Make sure you get over to corehomefitness.com and get your workout equipment. Get your in-home workout equipment today. It is the best place to do that. The Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight. They move on to 3-8, and they give us a little hope that the rest of this season is going to be more fun than maybe what we thought it was going to be. We got a long break now. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. Watch a little football. Watch the Ohio State Buckeyes in a top 5 matchup this weekend on Saturday, and have no stress about your football team because they have already won this week. We will see you next week. The Browns taking on the Broncos. We're going to have coverage all through the week, even with the holiday and all that. We'll have coverage all through the week. Go ahead, Brad. You got a point to make.
Just real quickly, get over to the OBR, register. If you want to get one of those 10 free subscriptions we're giving out to show appreciation. So get on over to the OBR.com on the front page, register, email Barry. That's all you need to do for a chance to win a free subscription behind the paywall over at the OBR.com. You
heard the man. Go do it. Go do it, and you can be part of the OBR family as well. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight on the OBR postgame show. For Brad Ward, for Pete Smith, for the entire OBR crew, I am Michael Keefe. The Browns, big winners on Thursday Night Football. Enjoy the long week off, and we will see you next week. Until then, cheers, and go Browns.